Thank you everyone for attending the NicolX Investor webinar today. Newly listed, NicolX Limited, stock code NKL, is an exploration company that has secured a strategic foothold in the prolific Albany-Fraser Belt in Western Australia. Firstly, we'll be hearing from Managing Director, Mr. Matt Gorsey, who will provide an overview of the recent developments of the company and its projects. Then Matt will be joined by Technical Director Oliver Cruiser and Exploration Manager Tony Donaghy, who will be on hand to participate in a Q&A session. If you do have questions you would like to ask, please do so by hitting the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. I would now like to pass over to Matt Gorsey, Managing Director of NicolX, who will give his presentation now. Matt, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, and welcome to all of the investors and prospective investors to our corporate presentation. Obviously, Nickel's in a really good space at the moment with great exposure to not only the burgeoning steel sector and traditional steel sector in Asia and Europe and North America, but also the new energy sector with exposure to the EV market and clearly the energy storage market related to lithium-ion batteries. And we know Nickel's the real powerhouse of lithium-ion batteries and the real workhorse. And we're focused on particularly nickel discovery, development, and acquisition in WA, which is traditional home of nickel sulfide assets. So, welcome to the presentation. Important information clearly with respect to competent person statement and forward-looking statements. So we're building nickel sulfide assets in WA. We've got a number of drill-ready targets. We recently listed on the ASX, raising $7 million, and now fully funded to execute our exploration and business development programs. Our immediate focus is on the Birrinut project, located in the Albany-Fraser Belt, which covers around 400 square kilometres, hosted drill-ready targets, including 4 high priority and 16 priority targets. We fully believe that the company presents great value over the short, medium term, very strong market fundamentals, as we've briefly explained, comprehensive drill-ready programs planned over 4 high priority targets, an excellent pipeline of further opportunities based on our proprietary nickel database and prospectivity model. Clearly a highly experienced corporate and technical team in the nickel sector, and the team have previously generated and transacted on base metal projects within the nickel and base metal space. So our capital structure is pretty straightforward for a newly listed company. Circa 70 million shares on issue, circa market cap of 12 million, EV of around about the same as our cash. So it represents fantastic value for investors looking to invest in the nickel space, and particularly in the nickel sulfide exploration space, where we're set to commence drilling. So we're pretty excited about the upcoming programs that we've designed. We've got a team of significant experience in the nickel space. Our chairman, Jonathan Downs, is a mining executive, 25 years experience. Previously a business development manager with Anaconda Nickel, a very famous and well-credentialed nickel player in the West Australian space. Currently a director of Galena and Ironbark, as well as his main operation being the Kaiser Reef company, which is developing gold projects in Victoria. And Jono's got a fantastic corporate and technical background to lead the company through the stages of our progression moving forward. I've got approximately 20 years experience in the mining space, particularly with respect to nickel and copper in the Fraser Range. Have listed a couple of companies there and have got a really good understanding of how you can and cannot develop nickel and nickel copper projects in the Fraser Range. So also a member of the corporate and tax committee of the Association of Mining Exploration Companies. Dr. Oliver Cruiser, who's our technical director, clearly world renowned geoscientist, recognised project generation specialist, and has been involved in a number of project generation, exploration and successful discovery opportunities across gold and base metals in Australia, North America and Africa. Dr. Chris Butera, again, another globally recognised, highly experienced and respected geologist, similar to Ollie. He's got a fantastic gold and base metal experience with pretty significant discoveries. We're fortunate to have been able to contract and take on Tony Donaghy as our exploration manager. Tony's an internationally recognised expert in global search for nickel, copper and cobalt and PGEs across a number of different belts in Canada and Australia. So we're really happy to have those guys on board. Not wanting to be short of internal expertise, we've been able to bring in some external expertise, particularly with CSA Global, as one of the world's leading mining and exploration consultants who have been appointed as exploration managers. Southern Geoscience are clearly one of the better geophysicists in Perth and certainly in Western Australia. And they've been managing our exploration programs and geophysics programs moving forward through the Birrinut project. Wireline Services Group have clearly got a fantastic record in terms of ground geophysics, particularly moving loop EM, which is the technology we've chosen to define our ore bodies or define our conductors within the Birrinut project. And they've just completed everything on budget and within time frame that we were looking to deliver. So we're really happy to have those guys on board. They've just recently demobilised from site after doing a fantastic program. And yeah, clearly as announced, getting DDH1 on board, who is one of the better diamond drillers in Australia, and certainly one of the better diamond drillers for nickel sulfide assets. They've got a number of rigs out in the Fraser Range, and we're really happy to have them on board to complete our diamond drilling program. So we believe the Albany Fraser Belt, which is this belt here, clearly we've got the Birrinut project in the north of the belt. It's still an emerging belt. It's certainly got a number of fantastic opportunities which are being developed and being discovered throughout the Albany Fraser Belt, not only clearly with initially the Nova Bollinger discovery, but then afterwards the Silver Knight discovery by the Creasy Group, and then Andromeda has been discovered recently, and obviously Tropicana, Voodoo, which are gold discoveries in the north. Legend Mining clearly made a discovery at the Mawsons deposit. So it actually still is quite an early emerging belt compared to a lot of nickel copper belts across the world. And of course, it's only 10 years in the making. Heaps of active majors here. So Rio, BHP, FMG, IGO clearly blanket this area. There's not too many junior explorers that have got good land positions. We're one of them, so we're pretty encouraged by that. So clearly, in terms of discovering a major base metal deposit, a gravity break or gravity ridge is required. We did a fair bit of data modelling to look at gravity ridges to understand whether those structures were present within our project area, and having done that, we were able to discover a major gravity ridge running not only through our tenement, but obviously commencing around about the Tropicana zone. And that runs all the way through our tenement area, which it gives us a lot of confidence that that's a major ingredient for a major base metal discovery. So it's a really important criteria for us to say, okay, well, this is a project you will really want to investigate properly. So there's drill-ready targets at Birrinut. We've got 6 granted tenements covering a total of about 400 square kilometres within the Birringham zone of the Albany Fraser. The project area is clearly drill ready. They're all granted tenements. Importantly, we've got really good access from Kalgoorlie all the way through to Tropicana along the dual carriage highway, which is then 10 kilometres to the project site on existing tracks. And importantly, it's a really data-rich project. So what we've been able to acquire here is a project which has had more than $10 million invested into the project. Now that leaves us with an extraordinary database of information, not only geophysics, geochemical, geology and drilling. Now that leaves us with being sport for choice in terms of opportunities and targets. And we're really encouraged by what we've seen, where we do have a project which has been primarily explored for gold. But of course, most of the base metal targets have been overlooked. And of course, we've been able to define some 20 odd opportunities for nickel copper. And over the last month, which we'll look at in a second, we've been able to undertake our own EM surveys and then obviously preparing for drilling and drill targeting. So our drilling at Fire Dragon, which is clearly the key theme of today's presentation, is the work that we've completed within only 4 weeks of listing, which is moving loop electromagnetic surveys. They've been completed already ahead of time and budget at the key high priority target at Fire Dragon, FD1, FD2, 3 and 4. Conductive anomalies were already detected quite strongly at FD1, 2 and 4. They're all suggestive from our analysis of basement sources. We're still in the process of completing final analysis of those conductors. But preliminary modelling in FD1 particularly has suggested a very strong conductor located down dip from previously identified EM conductors at Fire Dragon. Now FD1 looks as though the plate is about 800 metres, which is more than enough to contain a major nickel sulphide deposit in terms of length and potentially width. Importantly, we're drill ready. So our POW has been lodged, approved. We applied for an EIS grant for the government, West Australian government, for a $150,000 grant for a $310,000 program, and that's been approved. And drill holes have been or are currently being designed for an early July program. Unfortunately, got GDH1 on board, outstanding drilling contractor. Rig's been secured, and we're ready to go. And ready to roll effectively for an early July program. So the primary program, phase 1, will effectively be a 4-hole 1,000-metre diamond drilling program, test with massive sulphides at Fire Dragon, which is this main plate here and another plate there. And then of course, following that up, where we know there's massive sulphides, will be a phase 2 program of about 5,000 metres, covering a number of other targets throughout the Birringham project. So it'll be a staged process. Clearly, the more information we collect, the better will inform us for the stage or phase 2 program. But fortunately, having half of the program paid for by the WA government reduces the risk on any type of drilling program. And clearly, the first phase is just a test for extensions of any nickel copper bearing sulphide mineralisation that may exist within those key targets. So just a quick snapshot of some of the previous massive sulphides, being chalcopyrite, pentlandite, chalco, obviously copper, pentlandite being nickel, from very limited drilling, and some of it, most of it was RC. So you're really not going to get the real core that you need to evaluate for not only massive but potentially disseminated sulphides over broad zones from very limited drilling. And on the right, that's the key target conductor at Fire Dragon, which has got a pretty well-defined number of plates and very strong responses from the EM program. So our strategy, we're committed to investing our funds in the ground and backing our exploration team. We're not going to back away from that. Obviously, we're really well funded for our programs. Assembled a super high quality team of people to execute these programs. Walk up drill targets, granted projects, pre-dates native title, no pastoral leases, ready to roll. So within 4 weeks of listing, we're really confident that and really encouraged that we've been able to hit the ground running to get to the stage where, first week of July or second week of July, we'll be hitting the ground running to do some drilling programs. So a quick snapshot of what the plan is. Yeah, clearly we've done data review, ground EM surveys this quarter. Next quarter is going to be across the board, super busy in terms of data review of further opportunities, ground EM surveys and drilling. And yeah, as always, like any exploration company, we're always looking at other opportunities outside of what we're currently doing to potentially create value for our shareholders. So we believe it's a really well valued and considered nickel exploration opportunity. We're building assets throughout Western Australia. We're currently drilling, doing geophysics, evaluating other opportunities. We're in a really strong market for nickel. I mean, the steel market's just going at breakneck speed throughout Asia, Europe, and North America. That's obviously our traditional market in nickel, and then clearly the emergence of the new energy market with EVs and energy storage is just adding an enormous boost. There's been some supply shocks in nickel as well recently. We've seen some of the opportunity or some of the projects in Canada, which are owned by Vale, going on strikes, and so when that happens, you do have somewhat of a perfect storm where demand's going through the roof and supply looks to be shocked. So we see a really strong nickel market moving forward. Importantly, we're active. We're looking to drill as quick as we can and really trying to find out a little bit more about the geology and the lithology and an understanding of what it is we have on our high priority targets to move into phase 2, which will be a more comprehensive program. And not wanting to be a one-trick pony, but we've got certainly a pipeline of opportunities that we're looking at in a number of nickel belts in WA, in the southwest Yilgarn, around the Julimar region, Forrestania region, and certainly the Wiluna Agnew region, of course, Lake Johnson. And so we're pretty keen to look at other opportunities as well. Importantly, we've got a highly experienced corporate and technical team, guys that have dealt and built nickel companies before, and guys that have dealt with major funds, being resource capital funds and major mining companies in base metals like Glencore. So we've got that opportunity, but clearly as we go through a really aggressive drill program, we're certainly not going to sell the farm too early. Most of our capital raise is going straight in exploration, 40% in drilling. That's our Veritas Vincent. We certainly want to understand what we've got from a geological perspective, and certainly from a drilling perspective, rather than sort of marketing land banking. We're reasonably well valued, exceptionally well valued, in fact, around about cash backing at the moment, which is amazing value for potential investors, being 12 mil market cap EV of the same as our cash. And so as we've completely identified new and pretty strong conductors and now walking into a drill program, a diamond drilling program, I should say, it's fantastic value for potential investors looking at the company moving forward.
Thanks, Matt. A great presentation. Just to remind everyone, if you've got any questions, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen to submit any questions you may have. I've got a couple of questions as we welcome also Tony and Oliver to the Q&A session. So if you want to turn your cameras and audio on. Matt, question for you. I'm always amazed by the ability for companies to find quality assets in Western Australia when the bulk of the investing community would assume that all the good stuff's gone. How do you find such high quality assets?
So there's two ways. You either undertake a prospectivity study and really look at all the good areas that you want to peg, which Ollie and I have worked in private equity before. building 3 companies. One was a nickel company, one was a uranium company, one was a copper gold company. And you go about pegging ground. In today's market, it's impossible to peg ground because most of it's been taken up by other companies. So on the basis of that prospectivity model, clearly you want to identify areas that are worthwhile attacking, and then engineer and construct a deal with said vendors to be able to create a value proposition which is good for them. In this particular situation, I think we're quite fortunate where the main vendor, VRX, had moved strategically from being an explorer of nickel copper in the Fraser Range to being a silica miner near Perth. And that was their strategic decision. They wanted to be a cash flow company, and that's great. And they saw a great opportunity with a very strong team and good funding to put Birringham into a new float being Nickel-X. And so that's one of the ways to engineer a deal. At the moment, there's not a huge amount of pegging opportunities, so it's really just deal making at the moment and providing that everyone's on the same page in terms of creating values for both the vendor shareholders and our shareholders. That's the best way, and probably the only way at the moment. There's quite simply not a lot of pegging opportunities, so it's really just deal making at the moment, and we've obviously proven we've been able to do that to start with, and selecting good areas to do it in as opposed to less prospective areas.
So I've got a question for Oliver, and I will throw the same question to Tony. But Oliver, you've got extensive experience in these commodities and also building projects. What attracted you to these assets?
Good question, Dave. I think the assets are in a fantastic location. You know, we've got not only the nickel prospectivity, but also the gold prospectivity, where we're just about 8 kilometers or so from Tropicana, and on, you know, some of the largest surface gold anomalism that is known in the entire belt. So that was certainly a key attraction in addition to the nickel. And in terms of nickel, you know, it is very difficult to find, as Matt alluded to, find vacant ground or cheap ground, you know, in the Fraser zone. This one here is something where we're just thinking along the lines of, you know, that there's the right ingredients in this Birringham zone for forming nickel systems. It's not proven yet, and it's just given us an entry point into the belt where we can actually explore for nickel systems in areas that haven't been tested yet, but where there's early indications that we have the right rocks and you know, some nickel sulfides. I guess Tony can allude to that a lot better.
Well, Tony, nice segue to you. Again, extensive experience, as Matt outlined, in nickel and base metals and developing projects. What piqued your interest with these assets?
Well, I guess so maybe directly answer the question itself is that, yes, the Fraser Zone is a zone that has the hallmarks of a large igneous province, and we all know that there's very good association with large igneous provinces, but there's a numerous amount of nickel projects out there that are in tectonic settings very similar to where the Birringham project is. Some of the stellar examples globally maybe would be Jinchuan, 500 million tonnes at 1.5% nickel, and it's hosted in the only magmatic rocks that you will find within that particular orogenic belt in that particular area. It's a world-class deposit, one of the big ones. Kabanga in Africa, for instance, 72 million tonnes at 2.6% nickel, again, hosted in the only magmatic rocks that you find in that particular part of the belt. So while the Fraser Zone has been the hotspot, the rest of the Albany-Fraser origin is equally prospective because you're dealing with one of the classic tectonic settings for nickel deposits, where you're on the cratonic margin of the Yilgarn Craton, you have all the right structures, as we've seen from the gravity data, to focus magma and form nickel deposits. So that's one of the exciting things, I think, for me about this project, is testing that idea that in other parts of the world, you have world-class nickel deposits associated with.
So the prize could be big.
The prize can be big. I mean, it's exploration. There are no guarantees in exploration, as we all know, but we have a lot of good ideas to test, and we have a lot of good data to back those ideas now, and we have conductors. So the conductive of course, the key in nickel deposits, massive nickel sulfide are superconductors essentially. So if you have conductivity anomalies associated with the right rocks where you're getting geochemistry at surface of nickel common multi-element anomalism, who wouldn't test it?
And importantly, from a corporate perspective, you've got the money to test it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing to be able to understand for investors that we're fully funded to do this work. Investors have obviously taken our position within the company to be able to back us to do that. And as a corporate team, both myself and Jonathan Downs, our chairman, are absolutely 100% behind our exploration team to back them to do it. That's why we're here, and that's what we're going to do. We don't have any reservations about doing that. We just need to run a systematic process, and while a slightly different zone within the Albany-Fraser Belt, we've seen Legend, kick some fantastic goals through very systematic exploration and focused exploration. I think Galileo are probably on the way to doing the same thing. We've clearly seen Sirius and IGO particularly run through the same thing. And for a junior explorer, we've got the cash in the bank, fully funded to do it, and we're going to run a systematic process. And at the end of the day, as we know and we've seen, upon a major nickel discovery, but at Mawsons for Legend, which are now sort of 300 million odd market cap, or even a minor discovery that Galileo made at sort of 50 odd million market cap, or even all the way to Sirius, which reached a couple of billion in market cap. It's sort of 12 million market cap company like Nicolex, running a systematic, focused, well-funded program, and obviously clearly making some discoveries and kicking some goals, then we see a major re-rating. So it's a great buying opportunity for shareholders, we believe.
So I've got a technical question here, and I'll read it as is, just to make sure I get it right. So do you think the volume of magma in the northern corridor of Birringham is large enough to host a major nickel deposit, especially compared to the size of the Fraser Zone? That's
probably one for Tony.
I think that's very much what I was talking about earlier, where the Fraser Zone is essentially what's telling us that this belt of the Albany-Fraser origin itself has pedigree for nickel, and so being within the Albany-Fraser origin at large is the right tectonic setting. Sure, there might be a lot of magma that's come through the Fraser Zone further to the south, but like I said, examples such as Jinshuan and Kambanga, where the only mafic, ultramafic intrusive rocks in those belts in those particular areas are the ones that contain millions of tons that contain nickel metal. So you don't necessarily need to have huge volume of magma exactly where you are, but an indication of that you have that volume of magma somewhere in the belt is telling you have a significant mantle event that's happening as that belt is being amalgamated. And that's what we have in the Albany-Fraser origin as a whole.
Mm.
And Oliver, a question for you, and maybe Matt as well, but how important is it for an exploration company to have funding well beyond its current campaign, that it's not campaign to campaign, that it's actually got the money to do the work systematically that it needs to do to get the results?
Yeah, look, that's absolutely a fantastic position to be in. I have to fully agree with you on that. It's it doesn't mean that we're not going to carefully look at every dollar that we spend, but it gives us the comfort at the moment that we can enact the strategy that we've planned and promised to investors, that we would do at IPO. So yeah, absolutely. Matt might want to expand on this.
Yeah, no, there's nothing better than being fully funded to execute a systematic exploration program for any company, and obviously raising 7 million on the IPO, which CPS Capital did a fantastic job and was heavily oversubscribed. We're pretty confident that we're able to invest in the exploration programs that we've got, while still having a few cards up our sleeves with respect to further funding down the track, but a long way down the track. But unfortunately, we've just got to head down, bum up, and getting our work done. And that's just really exciting for the team. There's nothing better than that, to be honest with you, having listed a number of companies and some been in extremely well cashed up positions, some being in very difficult cashed up positions. And that's not unusual, but yeah, we're really confident that we've got really good funds to invest in our partners. And as we said, we've got fantastic partners with CSA Global, Wireline, DDH1, and Southern Geoscience. So we're getting the best expertise we can to be able to invest in the project we've got. And that's what you do as an explorer. You've got to spend your money in the ground.
And talking about project pipeline, one of the things being listed with cash, all of a sudden opportunities start crossing your path, so to speak. Are you seeing still opportunities coming to you beyond those on your current portfolio?
Yeah, look, I mean, we've got a prospectivity database which we have built, but are adding to, given the amount of data that comes through from the West Australian Government, from the Geoscience Australia, in terms of updated geophysics, geochemical, geological data, putting that into a black box to identify areas that we want to be involved in. And we've already stated that we're pretty keen to get involved in the Southwest Yilgarn, which is a pretty hot area and underexplored. We think there's opportunities in the Forrestania Belt, Wiluna Agnew Belt, and the Lake Johnson Belt. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities that are being presented to us, and yeah, we've got a really strict criteria as what we want to have a crack at and what we don't. But I think we've all, as a board, agreed. The next 6 to 12 months, we're fully focused on Birringham because we know we've got opportunities there. We're spoiled for opportunities there that need to be properly investigated. So that's our Horizon 1 focus. Horizon 2, new opportunities. Horizon 3, really high risk, large opportunities, be it ISR and nickel laterites or what have you. But yeah, as I said, 70 to 80% of our time is spent on purely exploring systematically on Birringham, but always keeping our eyes open because you certainly wouldn't want to miss an opportunity that may create more value for shareholders. So we'll weigh that up on a weekly exploration meeting and weigh that up on a monthly board meeting.
And just for everyone here, this next 6-12 months, what do they look like again?
So most of September quarter, we'll have our conductors from the recent Moving Loop EM program, comprehensive program, modelled, reviewed, identified for drill targets. Will primarily just be diamond drilling and diamond with RC collar drilling through the September quarter on initially a 1,200 metre program, phase 1, and then phase 2, obviously an iterative process looking at the results, a 5,000 metre program. There clearly will be opportunities we're looking at outside of that, but that's our main program for nickel copper in the Birringham. We do want to investigate the gold potential, as Ollie said. It looks to be an unbelievably prospective opportunity along strike from Tropicana. We just need to understand what's going on with the structures within that system, and it could host a multi-million ounce gold system. We just don't know. We need to do an IP survey to really get some structural understanding and then a bit of diamond drilling just to be able to prove up what it is there. And yeah, without wanting to forecast too much, we don't know, but that may be a spin out opportunity. But yeah, fully focused on drilling effectively at Birringham.
And it would be remiss of me to not mention that the share price has come under a little bit of pressure. Do you put that down really to a timing issue, if you like, that the market wants you to get drilling, and once you get drilling, then awareness and eyes come back on the stock?
Oh, look, I think there's a number of things at play here at the moment. This time of the year is not necessarily the easiest time to list a company. I think we're aware of that, and that was always going to happen, but it didn't really concern us too much. The most important thing was just getting on the ground and getting our work done. So within 4 weeks, we booked an EM crew, got an EM survey done, got our POW approved, managed to get an EIS grant for the government, booked the drillers, got the drillers booked. So from an operations perspective, we've been going at breakneck speed. I think that macro environment it looks to be really strong on the ASX 200, but I think it has softened up a little bit, and the market's become quite demanding in terms of results from exploration companies, where you quite often need a 80-metre intersection of 2% copper to really pique interest of the market. We also had some dissident shareholders on our IPO that basically tipped the stock out on day one. That was unexpected, unwelcome, and certainly something that we supported, with some very high net worth individuals that are involved in the mining space in Perth that have supported the stock. So it's tightened up now, which is really good. So the majority of the dissident shareholders or dissident sellers, if you like, have gone. So that was one thing. And yeah, clearly we're walking into a June 30 program where you're always going to get guys taking some tax losses or tax adjustments. It is what it is. And yeah, as we said, and as we've always said, we're focused on discovery, development, acquisition, and we're investing our funds in doing the right thing, which is exploring.
So just a point from an investor point of view, clearly well-funded, big exploration program, multiple campaigns, strong news flow expected over the next 6-12 months. That's really the story, isn't it? At a fair or very well-priced valuation, but the news flow and the activity is really what's going to drive share price and investor interest over the next 6-12 months.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you really want to get some really good drilling results, don't you? And Tony can comment and jump in here. But at the end of the day, we're a company that's looking to make a discovery and then potentially develop something and or acquire something. And those major catalysts are what really piques the interest of mid-cap to major funds. We've already got a couple of good institutions on board and talking to heaps of other institutions and end users and so forth. But yeah, at the end of the day, you really want some reasonable results and to understand what you've got, and that and or a major acquisition. And we've all been in that space before, where you make a major acquisition and you get some major funding from the big end of town and you get a re-rating. But yeah, we're fully focused on drilling, and yeah, Tony, you can jump in here, and that's what really gets your company's focus in the mainstream, I guess.
As Matt said, from the data sets that were acquired with the project, we had Southern Geoscience go through and re-rate that data, particularly on the geophysical data. The airborne EM identified anomalous areas that we would follow up with the ground. We have followed it up with the ground, turned up at least one good quality conductor. We're still in the process of modelling the data. There's conductivity associated with the other trends at the moment, but that data is still being processed and put forward by Southern Geoscience. Hit the ground running with the POWs, and one of the pleasing aspects of the POWs is that we applied for area POWs. So rather than specific drill hole points, we're able to cover off significant areas with clearance with the government. So that gives us complete flexibility from this point onward in the drill programs and where we site the drills. So as we go through the programs, and if we make discovery, if we have significant off-hole conductors and borehole EM, for instance, and still have the drill on site, we have the flexibility now to reposition the drill on the fly and follow up on things as we go. So that's a very exciting prospect from an explorationist point of view, to be able to test things as you derive them. And so in the next 6 months, we're poised very well to be able to maintain the momentum of exploration and keep things going if we're having success.
Matt, just a quick one on the financials. What do you think a budget for exploration over for example, the September quarter? What do you think an exploration budget should or could look like?
Yeah, look, I mean, really depends on what you're drilling for, where you're drilling, and all that sort of stuff. But ours is about $1 million for EM and drilling. So clearly we've got 300 grand already laid down for our phase 1 drilling program. 150 grand of that's going to be paid for by the WA government. We've got further downhole EM surveys planned on those drill holes to look for off-hole conductors at Fire Drag and FD1. And then, yeah, the wider 5,000 metre program on results that we get back in an iterative process. So we're looking at about $1 million for September quarter. And as I stated in the prospectus and all the presentations, anywhere between 1 and 3 over the next 12 months.
I might just jump in there. The 1,200 metres and 4 drill holes, that was based on the EIS application that went out before we completed on-the-ground geophysics as well. So the on-ground geophysics has confirmed some of the things we thought of in that program and throw some other things up for us to test as well. So that 1,200 metre program really should be viewed as the absolute minimum of what we're going to achieve out there in the next coming months.
Yeah, being phase 1, and then clearly phase 2 is a 5,000 metre program, and DDH1 have been fantastic and been able to rework rigs that they've got out in the area. They've got a couple out at BHP's ground, which is adjacent to ours, and FMG's ground adjacent to ours. So they've been able to rework and remobilise rigs to come down to site. So mobilisation is not massive, but we anticipate a pretty constant program through September and possibly even through December. And it's a good time to be drilling. Is clearly the weather's not too bad and conditions aren't too bad, and clearly we're coming into periods like Diggers and Dealers where you really want to be marketing your company as being active and on the ground and drilling rather than spruiking.
Okay, I'm going to one question each, and it's a non-technical question, so you should be able to hit it hard. What gets you out of bed and excites you in relation to these projects and Nickel X? So if you were talking as you are, talking directly to shareholders, what's the message? Why the big broad smiles, and what gets you out of bed in the morning? Matt, first.
Yeah, look, I mean, I love the nickel space. I think it's just a fantastic space. It's got great exposure to the steel sector, which is our traditional market, obviously one of the world's biggest industrial markets. And then obviously this emerging new energy market is extraordinary. A lot of speculators will put some demand profiles on it, but we really don't know how big it could be. So I like that space. I like nickel discoveries. I was an early investor in Sirius. Obviously, really watch closely the Chalice discoveries, nickel discoveries in WA. There's just not too much better, to be honest with you. And then clearly liking getting on the ground and doing some hard work and investing your money in the ground. We really like that prospect of achieving, firstly, our technical goals, and then clearly what comes with that is your corporate goals and your shareholder returns. So we all like to see a discovery, but it's more the achievement of your scientific plans effectively. And that's really exciting.
Tony?
I think it's the opportunity to look at terrains like West Australia, but with fresh eyes and fresh ideas and new knowledge that has been gained from discoveries such as Chalice and from Mount Alexander and Sirius, etc. And then when you're actually out there in the bush, it's the thrill of the hunt. That's why you turn up to the drill rig every morning expecting that a discovery has been made on the night shift, and you're just waiting for that core to come out. It's simple as that.
Yep.
Oliver?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, Matt and Tony have stolen my thunder, so it's, I'm very similar. It's the thrill of discovery. We want to discover something out there. We're applying new concepts, new thinking. We've got, I think, in Birringham a piece of ground that is highly prospective, not only for nickel but also for gold. It's been tested to a certain degree by Anglo, as a gold explorer in the past, but only to a certain depth, and also not comprehensively. So, as we said already, there's lots of opportunity here for a company like us to make this discovery. And working with the team, it's great to work with all these guys. And we don't have Chris and Jono on the line today, but they belong to this team also, of course. And I think together we've really got all the firepower that we need.
And on that note, just to remind shareholders and those watching, this is a world-class quality technical and operational team who are hitting the ground hard on a very exciting asset portfolio with a clear focus on exploration and money in the ground, well funded, and a big work program ahead. Gents, thanks for your time, and we look forward to following your progress.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave.